Derick from Mocha Breakdowns here. We just wrapped up the final UFC card of the year, and I want to give some recap and reactions to the card that just happened. Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape, flyweight main event, and it ended early, man. First round knockout from Manel Kape. Very, very impressive stuff. Listen, the line was super wide. He closed around minus 280, almost a 3-1 favorite against Royval. And the game plan, the way that I saw this matchup, was actually pretty straightforward, right? Manel Kape gets him out of there super early, or he gets drowned by Brandon Royval. I had 3 bets total on this card. Only 2 of them actually went live. The Jillian Robertson fight got canceled. So one of them was on this fight. It was for this fight to go over 3.5 rounds. And clearly that was a big L right there. I still like the value on Brandon Royval. I think you play this one out 10 times, you play this one out 20 times. And more often than not, it will go a little bit later. At least over 3.5 was my thinking. But hey, shout out to Manel Kape. This makes it 3 finishes in a row for him. And I know that there's been a little bit of weirdness, let's just say illegal fouls, inactivity, canceled fights with Manel Kape. One of the storylines that I had been talking about prior to this fight taking place was Manel Kape is really trying to prove that he is the same guy that had the hype from when he first got into the UFC. Rising champion, coming in, gets a shot against Alexandre Pantoja right off the bat, like title eliminator stuff right off the bat. With the finishes racking up, I think that there is a real compelling case for Manel Kape. I realistically, the Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, Kai Kara France, like the couple guys that were crowding the top of the division for so long, kind of take a back seat right now. Pantoja, he's recovering from the injury. Van, who do you have next? You got Tatsuro Taira, who I think is going to be the next upcoming champion right there. And I'm actually not sure exactly who is next in that mix right there. I just know that Manel Kape makes a pretty compelling case. Tatsuro Taira does because it's fresh blood, and with Josh Van being the poster boy, being the new champ for the flyweight division, Manel Kape might be seeing himself a title shot right here. But again, this is another situation. 32-year-old flyweight Manel Kape. Brandon Royval himself was 33. You're going against this young champion now. Like, the timing needs to work immediately. So impressive stuff by Manel Kape. Looked great. He was always going to be faster on the feet, but to see Brandon Royval just back up in a straight line against the cage and get flatlined, I mean, that was pretty much worst case scenario. So minus 135 for over 3.5 rounds did not cash, but shout out to all the people who backed Manel Kape. Kevin Vallejos, he starts Giga Chikadze. And this is another fight right here where if you look at Giga, he had never been finished before by strikes in his 21 fight MMA career. But Vallejos, he's the guy, man. He had to be able to close the distance, and that was really the thing that I was worried about, because it looked like he was getting kept at range pretty well in that first round. Giga won the round, kept him at bay with the kicks, kept him at bay with the straight punches, exactly everything that we had predicted right here. The only difference is Kevin Vallejos, once he was able to get that read, he is Ilia Topuria-esque, in my opinion, with some of his movements, his feints, and the way that he kind of draws in his opponents to land the big power shots. I know the broadcast team said it, but we'd been saying it. I had been saying it myself, but we'd been saying it on the Bloody Water podcast for quite some time, that I see the resemblance, at least. I've been saying that for a couple of Vallejos' fights now. But to be able to get Giga Chikadze out there, that's big name value, but Giga was the fading veteran trying to hold his spot in the rankings, so it's not the biggest of wins. He calls out Cub Swanson, which I think is a very missed opportunity. You know, there's a ranked opponent that you should be calling out to try to get as close to the belt, get as close to John Silva as you possibly can, I suppose. But this was a really good showing for Kevin Vallejos. I thought that was a good one. The play was never to be on Cesar Almeida, in my opinion, right here. Almeida can strike, but he's an old man. He's 38 years old, and in this division, when you talk about, yeah, we weren't just focused on the striking, our wrestling is on point and all that, you're too old in the game, unfortunately, to be able to develop enough grappling, enough of a well-versed game, in my opinion, to be able to withstand a 25-year-old Cezary Oleksichuk, who has fantastic boxing, but really did make it a point to just sit there and grapple. The thing that makes it even more telling is some of the stuff that Almeida did on the ground. While he did have a sweep on Oleksichuk that I thought was pretty sweet, it was really more of a momentum sweep than it was a technique sweep. Neither here nor there. The fact that Cezary had a couple of injuries that happened during the fight, they say both his knees got jacked up, goes to show as well. Almeida might not be the front runner that we thought he was going to be at this elevated stage of his career. But listen, shout out. He was a good kickboxing dude. He's going to be an exciting guy. If they're not going to wrestle him, people are going to get stiffed by this guy. So Melky Costa versus Morgan Charrier. So I've been talking all week about how Charrier really should be the side here. Melky, he's a volume guy. He's big, he's long, and he's going to look to grapple. And I think that Charrier if this fight really played out over a long-term period, right, 15 entire minutes, I think he'd be able to nullify some of the grappling right here, go to the body, and try to test that gas tank of Manel Kape. But we didn't need it because Costa just flatlined him with a head kick, faked him out to the body, went up to the head, got the job done. Listen, I can't take anything away from the man. He did close at around -155, which in this case was tremendous value for the people that backed him. But I really did like Cherrier at +130 as a dog. I'm really interested to see how he bounces back from here because Costa has all the momentum right now. Cherrier, it just didn't look good. It didn't look good. And let me go to the matchup page really quick. That makes Cherrier 2-3 in his last 5. Wins over Gabriel Miranda and Nate Landwehr, while those... I mean, the Landwehr win is solid, right? Losses to Nathaniel Wood, Chepe Mariscal, and Melky Costa. I think those are going to age well as well, right there. So this is just a big win right here for Melky Costa. I can't take anything away from him. The stinker of the card, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha, or I should say the stinker of the main card right here. Listen, Buchecha, in like another timeline, he smashes all of these dudes as soon as he gets them to the mat. I'm not sure what's going on in terms of like maybe it's the transition from being like a multiple time gi world champion to mixing in MMA at the highest level. It's just a little bit different, but there were so many positional mistakes that were made on both sides where I think Buchecha had finishing opportunities for Nzechukwu. The only problem for Kennedy on that side is, dude, you got to use that frame. He's getting taken down at will against Buchecha, who did seem pretty tired pretty early on in the fight. So for it to end in a draw, I think is actually good favor for Nzechukwu because he got what? I think it was 2 things. It was an eye poke or something of that nature, right? Like he poked Buchecha in the eye, got a point taken away immediately. So we loved that. And then it was also a 10-8 round situation, round 2. So listen, man, a draw is the best case scenario for both of these fighters, but I don't know, with this heavyweight division right here, who's going to stand out? I'll tell you one guy who did stand out, and we'll skip straight to them. Steve Asplund right here against Sean Sharaf. Steve Asplund, listen, I love the story. I love the interview. If you guys haven't checked out the interview, you absolutely should because it was super inspiring. I didn't know too much about him going into this fight. I stayed intentionally ignorant, if you will, but I was super impressed. I knew that this was going to sleeper. I knew that this was going to be a sleeper because my buddy AJ said, hey, check out this heavyweight fight. That was the sleeper of the week at the Bloody Water podcast. But Steve Asplund set a historic record, if I'm not mistaken, right here. Look at that, 170 significant strikes landed versus 66 for Sean Sharaf, and it looked like he could go another 2 rounds, no problem in this fight. We needed life here. This is only a 2nd round TKO. We needed life in this heavyweight division, as I'm mentioning, and that guy, Steve Asplund, is somebody that I think people should keep an eye out. I don't know what the grappling situation is going to be looking like, but from a pure boxing standpoint, you got yourself a Max Holloway at heavyweight right here, not to be too dramatic right there. So we didn't talk about this one on the Bloody Water podcast, but this was a late notice edition right here, King Green versus Lance Gibson Jr. Listen, this is kind of what we mean when we talk about these Bellator guys, these PFL guys, other promotion guys coming into the UFC. You see an opponent like King Green who's got over 50 career fights and you get frozen. This dude, Lance Gibson, he did finish as a dog, which was actually, I mean, it was surprising because narrative-wise, Green, he's 38 years old, 39 years old. He's fading. Chin is starting to deteriorate, and his style with the hands low and basically surviving off of instincts, surviving off of head movement and quick reaction speed, 38, 39 years old, that's a recipe for, yeah, you're going to start getting chin. These fights are going to start looking ugly. Never happened, never even came close. But I will say that, he used that old school walk him down style, hands low, shoulders high, and stunned it on him for 3 rounds right here. So even though it was a split decision right here, as soon as the fight started, you almost immediately could say, oh yeah, Bobby Green was the side right here. These Bellator guys still need to prove it. These PFL guys need to prove it. Not Yaroslav Amosov right there, right? Not the dude who was on a 27 straight fight run before losing to Jason Jackson. Not that guy who had to go relinquish his belt, go fight in the Ukrainian war and all that guy. That guy is for real. That's legit. That's a champion. That's a guy who at one point people were saying is the best welterweight in the actual world right here. So that guy got it. Other guys like Lance Gibson, not quite. You know what I mean? I think he's gonna watch the fight back and be like, damn, I needed that one back right here. Juana Santos versus Melissa Croden. That's the video that you guys saw. It was my #1 prelim bet on this card right here. It cashed, as you can see here. She did. As you can see here, Santos closed closer to about minus 140. And listen, as soon as I saw this fight go, it was a little bit closer than maybe I would have liked it. But the game plan, everything that I talked about, it was all self-evident. Melissa Croden would be really scary for this division. She would be a fundamental issue for this division if she had a little more snap on her shots, if she pumped out the jab a little bit more, if she really sat down on those shots and made it a real boxing threat. I think it'd be a problem. I think that she lost because, one, a bad game plan. She went to try to out-grapple Santos, who was trying to grapple her back. Santos still doesn't look like she could strike well, but she was able to get her takedowns. Body lock takedowns wasn't exactly the perceived method that we were going for, or that she ended up going for. That's what I thought. It was going to be a catching a kick, body lock takedown. It was a little bit different, but she was able to get her takedowns pretty much at will against Melissa Croden, which I thought was not necessarily impressive, because I thought that's what's going to happen right here, but the easiest minus 125 that I have cashed in quite some time, especially on women's MMA. So glad that we took that one to the bank. Again, folks, I had 3 plays, went 1-1 officially because one of them got voided. That was on the Jillian Robertson fight against Amanda Lemos right here. Jamie Lynn Horth versus Teresa Bleda. Now, all I'm going to say is this. You don't bet on a women's MMA matchup where one of the fighters, or you don't bet on that side, where one of the fighters, Bleda, for an example, had been out since 2023, 2.5 years out, multiple injuries. It's just hard. She's a grappler, and it was pretty much the Luana Santos, Melissa Croden type matchup. But imagine if Santos had been out for 2.5 years, and so, you know, it was just one of those momentum things where Jamie Lynn Horth, literally all she had to do was stuff the takedowns. Once she was doing that, Bleda, I don't know if it was an adrenaline dump, just got too tired, but she gassed out and got knocked out pretty quickly right there. You know, TKO strikes type situation right here. But I thought it was just an impressive win for Jamie Lynn Horth, who, if I'm not mistaken, closed. Actually, let me see where she closed. I'm going to say plus 190. Let's see. And plus 160, right? Or minus 190 for Bleda. There we go. Dyslexia. But that was a play that I wish I would have taken right here. This was a stay away for me, though, because I will always give you the same advice in these situations. Stay away from a level of uncertainty like that in women's MMA. MMA already is a terrible variable for just anything can happen, but women's MMA, in my opinion, is also really, really difficult to bet. You got to know what you're doing, know what you're looking at right here. So again, this was a interesting card right here. Biggest winner, in my opinion, is probably going to be Melky Costa. It's probably going to be Manel Kape. Kevin Vallejos, this was a big win, but not quite as big as maybe you wanted it to be. And let's see who else we got right here. Who else? Yeah, I mean, Amasov, he did what he needed to do against Neil Magny, 1 round. That was nice. Steve Asplund, let's see if he gets the push that maybe some people are looking for. But yeah, folks, that is the play right here. That was your recap, and this was the final event that we're going to have for the UFC this year. So breakdowns will be a little few and far in between for the next 6 weeks of non-UFC action, but we do have a couple of other cards, and I definitely hope everybody is going to stay tuned in. So all that I have to say left is follow me on X if you don't do so already. That's for live tweeting, live posting, whatever you want to call it, for some of these fights right here for the remainder of the year and for early January. But yeah, that's all that I got. Until next time. Peace.